Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere, all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our class on realizing God. Swami Prabhavananda's collection of talks. Today's talk will be on yoga, which we normally speak of as Raja Yoga. But before I go ahead with that, a couple of things. First, the more important one, Swami Yogeshananda is apparently very near death. We had a false alarm once before, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to recover from this. So the last we heard, the hospice people had said, prepare, and so they had contacted the mortuary to be ready and so on. And they're giving him morphine by his agreement. He agreed to it. He was lucid enough to agree. And so he's comfortable. He's apparently cheerful. And he said, please get my clothes ready and my money and make sure my car's ready, which is one of those things that people, apparently people preparing to die often feel as if they have this strong feeling they're going on a journey. And so they ask to be prepared. So that's the latest that I have on Swami Yogeshananda. If there's anything more by tomorrow, when we celebrate Swami Brahmananda's puja, then indeed I'll report that then. The other thing that I have to report is that yesterday, at just about this time of day, I got my first COVID shot. And it's left me a little weary. I don't feel sick at all. It's not that it's just I feel a little reduced in energy. So if you detect that, that's why.
It's because your body is building antiviruses now.
I suppose that's it. The shoulder tells me it's busy, all right. It's sore, not painful, but it's sore. There's definitely stuff going on. So yeah, I'm just a little weary. As soon as we finish class, I'll take a nap.
And did you do Pfizer or Moderna?
It was done at CVS, and it was the Pfizer vaccine. And my second shot is scheduled for March the 5th. So there we are. Before we start on the Swami's talk on yoga, is there anything from last week that was left unresolved in your mind? Last week was the path of knowledge, or jnana yoga. And it was a complicated talk with some twists and turns, so to speak. Is there anything that anybody wants to ask or comment about what we studied ending last. All right. We'll go ahead with the Swami's title for this talk is simply Yoga. It's what we normally think of as Raja Yoga. And the Swami, using the ideas from which this talk was drawn, wrote a book on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra called How to Know God. And for anyone who wants to know more, that and Swami Vivekananda's book Raja Yoga are two excellent resources. So we'll start with what the Swami said. Yoga has become identified with physical exercises, gymnastics, twisting or torturing the body, and breathing exercises. That is what is known as Hatha Yoga, but it is not efficacious for spiritual life. Now, I know there's controversy about this. The Swami was reflecting Sri Ramakrishna's attitude about it, and therefore Raja Maharaj's attitude that the virtues of Hatha Yoga are not directly applicable to spiritual life. But we can say that when we learn control of our attention and the grace and poise that comes with Hatha Yoga, there is a transferable benefit, but only if you have that intention. As the Swami points out, just the exercises themselves are not efficacious for spiritual life. And then the Swami says, and this is something that the Ramakrishna order is very strong on, great dangers may arise, especially through practice of breathing exercises. If there is any mistake made, and chastity and dietary rules are not observed. Notice these qualifications for practicing pranayama as breathing exercises. If there is any mistake made, and if chastity and dietary rules are not observed, these breathing exercises may bring disease which is non-diagnosable and for which there is no cure. One of the things that they can bring on is neurological issues, strokes, and so on. The brain itself may be damaged without any hope of repair. That this is what I just said, stroke. That's what the Swami is pointing to, although more subtle damage. And this is what he means by non-diagnosable. More subtle damage may also occur. The brain itself may be damaged without any hope of repair. The word yoke is derived from the Sanskrit yoga, from the Sanskrit word yoga, which means union. The idea is related to the root meaning of the word religion, religio, a binding back, a reuniting. It refers to mystic union with God. Patanjali gives the meaning as to distinguish the reality within you from that which is unreal. In other words, to realize the truth of God. Now, let's just pause a moment to distinguish the reality within you from that which is unreal. Yoga, like Jnana Yoga takes the attitude that that which we experience through the senses and through the left mind is characterized as unreal, in the sense that it is not permanent, it is always changing, and it's ephemeral. So that's what Patanjali means, to distinguish the reality within you, which is eternal, changeless, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, from that which is unreal. In other words, to realize the truth of God. On the contrary, Hatha Yoga makes you body conscious, and that is a great obstacle to spiritual growth. Posture, an easy posture, is only important in making you forget that you have a body, so that you can practice mental disciplines. So what he's talking about is this posture, asana, which is described in the Gita and elsewhere in the Upanishads and in Patanjali, as simply sitting comfortably with the spine and neck erect, spine, neck, and head erect. And practicing that enough till it's a comfortable way to sit. In the West, psychology is defined as the science of the nature, function, and phenomena of the human soul or mind. Just mark, human soul or mind. In other words, in the West, mind is identified with the soul. In the East, we say that each person is spirit, the Atman, and has a body and mind. The mind is separate from the soul or Atman or self. The mind is an object of experience. So I'm going to repeat that. This is so important. In the West, psychology is defined as science of the nature, function, and phenomena of the human soul or mind. Just mark, human soul or mind. In other words, in the West, mind is identified with the soul. In the East, we say that each person is spirit, the Atman, and has a body and mind. Like we have a car, like we have a house. It's just that simple. You are and you have a body, a car, a house. You are not any of those things. You are that which apparently is in possession of those things. In the East, we say that each person is spirit, the Atman, and has a body and mind. The mind is separate from the soul or Atman or self. The mind is an object of experience, like every other object of experience. Tree, cat, mind. Now they all are made of consciousness, no doubt. Holy Mother said, don't beat that cat. I am in that cat. She also asked her niece to be respectful of a broom. Not just on a practical basis, because the broom was consciousness. But those are all things that we experience. They are objects of our experience but the only subject is the experiencer, or the Atman, which appears to us as the witness consciousness. The mind is an object of experience. The mind's thoughts we can see and recognize. Just as I can see my body, I can read my mind. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, Prakriti, that which makes up the universe of mind and matter, is of eightfold composition: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, ego. So I'm going to repeat that. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, my Prakriti, that which makes up this universe of mind and matter, is of eightfold composition: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, ego. These are one category, not distinct. Mind is not distinct from any other object. Behind this, and distinct from it, is the principle of consciousness in all beings, and the source of life in all. This is brought out in the Kena Upanishad. Quote, at whose behest does the mind think? Who bids the body live? Who makes the tongue speak? Who is the effulgent being that directs the eye to form and color, and the ears to sound? The self is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech. The self is also breath of the breath, and eye of the eye. Having given up the false identification of the self with the senses and the mind, and knowing the self to be Brahman, the wise become immortal. And that is the objective of yoga, to realize the Atman, pure consciousness. So before we move on into the particulars, is there any question or comment about what's been said so far about the differentiations that have been made, and the definitions that have been established about what is and isn't the reality? Anything at all?
Yes.
Yes, Robert.
You spoke of the soul and the mind interchangeably.
Well, in the West, they speak of the soul and the mind interchangeably. This is also a part of some Christian practice, not all Christian practice, but from the Eastern perspective, the mind is part of all of created reality. That is something that you, in a sense, possess as the divine being, but it is not you, and they are not interchangeable, mind and soul.
Okay. I thought you were saying that they were interchangeable.
No,
I got it.
The Swami points out that in Western psychology, there is that.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
Brother Shankara.
Yes.
This is Fred.
Hello, Fred.
Hi. Hello to everybody. Good morning. You just said, I believe, that the witness consciousness is equivalent to Atman.
It is the face of the Atman. It is that which we can experience of the Atman. The Atman is not experienceable. It's realizable, because it is the divine presence behind. But we experience it as that witness consciousness that is the face of it. And Sri Krishna talks about it in the Gita and says that that witness consciousness is the experiencer, the only experiencer, really. Everything else is reflected from that. So,
Okay.
anything else, Fred? That is a very good question.
Oh, thank you.
So, the witness consciousness, when you are in that state, as we do when we practice contemplation, concentration, and meditation, we find ourselves in this state where we're seeing or hearing our thoughts and our feelings and our perceptions as if we're watching a movie. I think the other day on the phone, I may have used this metaphor of sitting at the bottom of a swimming pool and looking up and seeing at the top all of the other people splashing and playing at the top of the pool, swimming and so on. But where you are, it's very quiet, very still. So you are in that witness consciousness of what is going on at the surface of the pool. That witness consciousness is our first indication that we are something other than this constant stream of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions that are what the mind is capable of. Very good question, Fred. Anything else from anyone?
You had mentioned Prabhavananda's How to Know God. I'm currently reading it, so if anybody wants it, it's available at the center, but I've got it now, so let me know and I'll try to finish. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. Brilliant work, just brilliant writing. He's a brilliant writer. In this book too, it's right on par with it.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
Well, he really, what he found is in working with his Western disciples, the monastics and the householders, he found that there were the language in Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga, because of its Indian/Victorian origins, which is not a complaint or a fault of any, but it was just hard for Americans in the 1940s and 50s to understand sometimes. So the Swami wrote a new commentary and translation in more modern English, though any of us can very much benefit from reading Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. And we'll take that up after we finish Jnana Yoga. We'll either take up that or Karma Yoga, depending on what the class wants to do.
Shankara, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Can you talk about the connection between the witness consciousness and the reflective material?
Okay. The problem about our perception of the reality in our waking consciousness is that our mind, which is a reflected thing, the mind is essentially inert. It is powered by the reflection of buddhi and ahamkara, the two aspects that are able to distinguish one thing from another, buddhi and ahamkara. Who is distinguishing one thing from another? But there's only one buddhi, there's only one ahamkara, there's only one true ego. And so what appears in us is a reflection of that. But the mind is so cluttered with past impressions and the effects of the gunas on those past impressions, which is what generates our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. It's so cluttered that we don't see clearly, which is why the witness consciousness is constantly, as Saint Teresa of Avila said, it's only in us that God becomes so confused that he asks questions.
Mm.
Because of the clutteredness and chaotic disorganization of our minds. Now that clutteredness and chaotic disorganization doesn't go away. I mean, all of those things, it kind of becomes dormant as we don't water it with our attention and as we sink beneath it into our concentration and meditation. And then we see that the witness consciousness is capable of being aware of a whole other realm, the inner realm, the inner being of ourselves, which is associated with the right mind or the heart, and where there is very little clutter. If you wish to understand more about this, and I'm sure that you've heard this before, Janaki, virtually all of you have, read Jill Bolte Taylor's book, because she's a neuroanatomist and an expert writer in modern English who was forced by this massive stroke in her left hemisphere to live in that right mind or heart-based consciousness. And if you ask Jill Bolte Taylor who she is now, she says, I am a being as big as the universe, because that has been her experience. And that is what the witness consciousness is capable of perceiving. This is still within the realm of time, space, and causation, but all of universe is made of consciousness. So the witness consciousness becomes aware of that, more and more aware as you sink deeper into the silence, until you experience something called savikalpa samadhi, in which you see that there is nothing but the divine presence. All else is pushed to the periphery. That means it comes back when you return to your ordinary state of consciousness, but your perception of it is totally transformed because you have seen that there is nothing but the divine presence, the divine consciousness, and that you, the you of you, this witness consciousness, is a part of that. But it's still that little trace of separation. There's this experiencing that. But it's very important to have that experience because it transforms all of your feeling about who you are and what it is that you are immersed in as a being in an action and experience suit in universe. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that state of realization in which there is no experiencer. Since there is no experiencer, it can't be spoken of. The witness is left behind. When there are no more vibrations in the mind stuff. This is what is so beautifully described in the beginning of Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. It's talked about also in Swami Prabhavananda's How to Know God. But when Swami Prabhavananda was asked about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what he would say to the questioner is, well, first experience Savikalpa Samadhi, then we'll talk about Nirvikalpa, which was to encourage them to sink deep enough into the silence which exists within us. Sink deep enough into that silence to where they see only, and it will be, because each of us is unique, our experience of it will be unique. But sink into the silence deeply enough, you come face to face, as it were, with the divine presence in whatever form it exists for you. When we did that guided meditation a couple of weeks ago, that was a gesture in that direction, using radiance, shining, as the analog for divine presence.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Okay. Well, this is exactly what we should be doing, dears. This is exactly getting these things clear. So anything else? Okay. We're right on schedule. So the object of yoga, Patanjali's yoga, not Hatha Yoga, the object of yoga is to realize the Atman, pure consciousness. That's what I meant by you are in that state where you are experiencing only the divine presence or pure consciousness. Many argue, I can only accept what I can see and perceive and experiences with my senses and mind. I can only accept what I can see and perceive and experience with my senses and mind. Very good. But if you could experience God that way, you would not consider him God, because he would be limited and finite like any other object. God cannot be seen with these eyes or experienced with the senses. He is even beyond the thoughts of the mind. But the purified mind realizes him because he is behind all this. And the first experience of that is that Savikalpa Samadhi. You can see, you can hear, you can experience because of that presence within you. I'm going to repeat that. You can see, you can experience, you can hear because of that presence within you, that pure consciousness within you. It's like a complicated piece of electronics. It has many, many capabilities. Many, many, many capabilities. But until the electricity flows through that piece of electronics, it's just inert. None of it is going to function. So we all know what this means. Your cell phone becomes drained of its energy. Its battery goes dead. This wonderful machine that we have that does all these marvelous things is suddenly just another piece of matter in our hands. So you can see, you can hear, you can experience because of that presence within you, that pure consciousness within you. In order to experience that, you have to have your divine sight opened. Now that's what I meant by sinking deep enough into the silence that you have this experience of Savikalpa Samadhi. That is the divine sight that opens. And so I said, though everything else has been pushed to the periphery, as you have that experience, when you return to your ordinary consciousness, it's no longer ordinary in the sense that it was before, because everything is transformed because of your immanent empirical experience of the divine consciousness being the animating principle in everything. According to Western psychology, there are three areas of mind: conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, as there are three states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. All our experiences are within these states. We in the East, however, point out that there is a fourth. The waking experience contradicts the dream experience, and we accept it as more real because it has greater permanency. But when the awakening of the fourth comes, the waking experience also appears as dream, because the experience of the fourth contradicts all the other experiences. For instance, in seeing the manifold universe, we are seeing you and I as different. But this becomes contradicted by the experience of seeing everything as Brahman. We are all one in that. Then our whole view of life changes. It has greater permanency. Now, notice we're still talking. This is not Nirvikalpa Samadhi we're talking about here. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is beyond all this. As long as we're talking about experience, we are still within time, space, and causation. We are still within Maya. We are still, because of our experiencer aspect, we are still limiting that which is experienced. It expands beyond our wildest imagination before our experience of it. And we get a glimpse of what is meant by infinite and eternal and so on. The experience of the fourth state of consciousness, Turiya, the experience of the fourth contradicts all other experiences. For instance, in seeing the manifold universe, we are seeing you and I as different. But this becomes contradicted by the experience of seeing everything as Brahman, everything as that divine presence. But it's still seeing, it's still experiencing. but it changes everything once it's seen. By the experience of seeing everything as Brahman. We are all one in that. Then our whole view of life changes. Again, our view of life, as I said, having had that experience, everything changes. Then our whole view of life changes. It has greater permanency than this waking state because it is eternal and is never contradicted by any other experience. Now the Swami's about to take off in another direction here a little bit. Is there anything about what's just been said that needs further definition, or any comments that you would like to make from your own experience of this state of being?
Could I just review some of the things you said so I make sure I understand this?
Yes.
So we have sinking into silence. We have opening of divine sight. We have, okay, so these two things, does sinking into silence lead to the opening of the divine sight, or is it the same, does it happen at the same time?
The sinking into silence is progressive. The opening of the divine sight, or savikalpa samadhi, is something that happens once there is sufficient stillness in the silence, that you're no longer distracted. And Patanjali has some very specific time frames for this. I won't go into that. The Swami will go into it later. But concentration begins with 12 seconds. Meditation begins with 12 times 12 seconds, or 2 minutes, 24 seconds. So that's deep enough into the silence to begin meditation. Sometime after that beginning of meditation, as that lengthens out to where there's only you're not interrupted in your contemplation and concentration on the silence. Then something else happens, and the divine sight opens. As I said, it will be different for everyone. It will be different for everyone. I mean, we have the example in that beautiful movie of Ebenezer Scrooge. It happens after one night. The Swami Prabhavananda was asked, is this possible? Yes, it's possible. Very rare, he says, but possible. But the intensity of that night, if you read the story or watch the movie, I mean, there's a lot experienced over in what seems a timeless time. And so this is one of the characteristics of sinking into the silence, is that you lose all sense of time. You may have been sitting for 45 minutes, but you don't have any sense of the passage of time. You're simply with that, and it becomes very magnetic. Sri Ramakrishna uses the example of a giant magnet and the needle of a compass. And when the compass is covered with dirt and so on, says the needle can't point to the great magnet. But when there's sufficient cleaning of the compass and the needle in the compass, then the needle will point only at that. And he's just trying to make an analogy with what happens as we purify our awareness through spiritual practice. we are drawn to this. As Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras, the first 6 practices of yoga are something that you do, self-effort, purusha kara. Purusha, self, kara, effort. The last 2 are something that happens to you because there has been sufficient preparation and purification. Then the mind, it's beyond mind, it's meta mind, it's something else. But as I say, it's something different for each of us. That guided meditation of a couple of weeks ago was an attempt at a gesture at what the pathway is to that place.
Brother
Brother
Shankara,
Shankara,
There's 2 of you speaking at once.
you can go, Swayam.
All right, so
Okay.
first Swayam, then Sunny.
Okay, mine is, I think, a fairly quick question, hopefully. Do this, the time parameters for concentration and meditation, the 12 seconds and the 12 times 12, hold true for mantra meditation as well?
Uh-huh.
Or is that differently?
No, mantra meditation is exactly the same. When you can hold that mantra without any interruption for 12 seconds, you've achieved concentration. Because that is thought. It is, and what happens is, as you practice that japa and you achieve the 12 times 12 seconds, what happens is the mantra itself transforms for you. That which is contained within the mantra begins to reveal itself. And that becomes that great magnet that pulls you further and further. So mantra meditation it definitely fits this. The concentration is holding any one thought or image, or whatever else you're using. It can be a picture, it can be a statue, it can be a series of musical notes. For some people it is. They hear Krishna's flute, so to speak. And it becomes so entrancing for them. This is described in the Rasa Lila. It's what draws the gopis and the gopas out of their homes and makes them rush toward Krishna. So it's just best to be faithful to what your guru taught you and trust that in time everything will reveal itself to you by your purification. And purification means sinking below the chaotic disorganization of the left mind. We think our left mind is orderly because it wants us to think that. But if you really sit and watch it in contemplation and concentration, you'll see it's just absolutely, it's as chaotic and disorganized as it can possibly be. There's a little sequence in Swami Prabhavananda's How to Know God, where he narrates the activities of the chaotic and disorganized left mind. And he does a beautiful job of it. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Okay.
But as a joke, I was just going to say that one of my friends was saying that my heart has become now cleaner and removed blockages and purer by the surgeon. So I don't know.
All this is possible, dear. All this is, so hold that thought. You know, the divine presence was there. It's what brought you through it.
it.
Did it.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. You saved,
Good job,
you
Cindy.
saved the meeting.
Okay, so Sonny, when you try to compare, first of all, each of us is individual, unique. Secondly, Sri Ramakrishna cannot be compared with anyone. If we believe what we're told and what we've read about Sri Ramakrishna, he is that same being who, as Krishna said, I am the master of all of this. I am the master of Maya. So his experience, and by the way, Sri Ramakrishna said there are thousands of kinds of samadhi. So what he experienced versus what Gandhi experienced, there's just no way for me. When I said it's above my paycheck, I mean that very sincerely. I have no way to make any estimation of that. It's an interesting question, but I don't know how to answer it.
Thank you.
Brother Shankara, this is Fred again.
Yes, Fred.
It seems like in some religions, you would realize, you're on the wrong path. Then you would ask God to solve it, and then you're born again or whatever. And then you realize intellectually that you're all brothers with everybody and everybody's the same, and then you go along a path. So it's almost like a person could by faith realize that we're all the same, right? But it seems like this is different because this is where you actually get something beyond that, where you experience this
exactly.
as being your experience. Is that what this is?
Yes, you see with a different kind of vision or experience with a different kind of experiencing that oneness. The fact that it is indeed all one. It's not an idea. There's no conceptualization. It's simply an experience. And as I say, then when you return to what we think of as our ordinary frame of reference, our ordinary consciousness, our ordinary awareness, we bring that with us. And so we have an undeniable knowledge of the oneness of all beings. As Swami Vivekananda said, where shall we go to find God if not in our own hearts and in every living being? But that's not an idea. I mean, it's expressed as an idea, but the experience of it is way beyond ideation. So yes, we can through, and Christ asks us to do that, but he also asks us to go beyond the idea. He said, go within, go to the kingdom of God within, and all else, all knowledge, all will be added unto you. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. So yes, and we all ask the divine for the gift of divine experience, divine sight. Very good question, and a good comparison. The faith of Christianity or Islam, or I don't know that much about Judaism, but whatever it is, that certainly there was some of those teachings in the teachings of Baal Shem Tov. So we But it's only, this is what we're told over and over and over again. It's only through spiritual practice that we can come to a real understanding, a real grasp of what is meant by divine sight, divine experience, oneness of all creation.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Shankara, this is Katrina. I have a question.
Yes, Katrina.
May I answer it? How did we get so far off in terms of not knowing who we really are?
The short answer, Katrina, is that as the divine being, we want that. In the Chandogya Upanishad, there is, this is an approximate translation, but it'll do. The divine presence says, I am one, I shall become many. And the vibration of that thought multiplies and complexifies. In terms of modern physics, it's called anti-entropy. Multiplies and complexifies and specializes until we get what we see today. We want the experience of manyness. And as I said, if you want the most beautiful poetic explanation of this that I have read, you read the last 4 pages of chapter 4 of Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. Do you have a copy of Vivekananda's complete works, Katrina?
No, I don't, but I'm gonna get that.
Email me. Email me and I'll send you a PDF.
Okay, thank
And
you.
just email me with a request and I'll send you a PDF of the complete works. And
Okay,
you'll be able to find those pages that I just mentioned.
okay, thank you.
The fact is that we as the divine being, each one of us is as part of this, is doing this right this moment. We're doing this together. This is what is meant by studying the art of spirituality, coming to an understanding that we are doing this together. We have created whatever it is, however we may want to characterize it, the challenge of our existence. And together we are working on what it means to seek the kingdom of God within and come and unravel this. Well, unravel's the wrong metaphor. Sink below the chaos of what we have created until we find that which created it. And that's, as the scriptures say, satisfies us utterly. But it's like I said earlier, Saint Teresa of Avila remarks, it is only in us that God becomes so confused that he asks questions. And that's part of a beautiful poem called Every Prophet's Name. It's really, really quite a remarkable statement of how this comes to be.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from anyone?
You had mentioned mantra meditation and holding the image of the Ishta in your mind. I am now, during this lockdown, I'm meditating 2 to 4 times a day, and distractions come. And I'm wondering how you deal with those distractions. Sometimes they're worldly things like, oh, I'm going to say this to such and such person, or I got this meeting coming up, or I got this problem at my job, whatever. Other times, other images come to mind which I feel are divine and comforting. For example, I sometimes see this picture of Vivekananda meditating. You've probably seen it.
Yeah.
And also I'll see in my mind Ramana Maharshi meditating, or Jesus in his yoga posture. And I find those soothing. And I think those ones are okay to think of for a while before you return to your Ishta. What do you think?
Uh, Brahmadas, you decide for yourself.
Okay.
The witness consciousness that you're describing, which is observing all of these things, the issues with your work, the to the extent that it soothes you, as you said, to with regard to the let's go back to the work things. Just I'll just tell you what I do with those things when they come up. I just say, well, we'll deal with that later.
Right.
And right now we're doing this. And I just go back to my mantra. Now, anything else that arises that you characterized as soothing, I may stay with that for a while, because it does, it becomes that one great thought. But then ultimately, as you say, you go back to what your guru gave you. And because that's more powerful than anything that it may cause to arise in the way of an image or thought, or ultimately that's the power that is generating all that. So that will be what carries you closer to the deep silence. Very good question.
I like that. We'll deal with you later. We'll deal with this later. That's a good thought.
Right. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Next week we'll start with the words Immanuel Kant, which is those of you who don't know it already, you can go online on YouTube and find the Monty Python's Philosopher's Drinking Song. Philosopher's Drinking Song. Anything that gives us a good laugh is worth our time. And the Philosopher's Drinking Song by Monty Python will give you a good laugh. And there is among the philosophers mentioned is Immanuel Kant.
Oh, speaking of which, I'm subscribed to Swami Vivekananda on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And this is just kind of brief. There's a quote in which he said Immanuel Kant had discovered the concept of Maya in the 18th century, but Vivekananda said, in the Vedas, this concept had been alive for several thousands of years.
Yes, Immanuel Kant came to the same conclusion, yes. But, it's we all know that the Vedas are the oldest scriptures in the world, apparently, and they contain a great deal of truth. Other thinkers will independently rediscover those truths. Anything else? All right, dears. Dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in Mother's loving and protective embrace. Until tomorrow morning, for those of you who wish to join us for the puja, 11 a.m. It'll be streamed from the chapel. The link, of course, is on the website and in your newsletter. And we're going to celebrate Swami Brahmananda's birthday and offer our worship. So until tomorrow morning, for those of you who wish to join us, it's been good to be with you.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you, Brother
Thank,
Shankara.
thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Congratulations on getting your
Thank you.
COVID shot. Pretty soon you'll be immune.
Yes.
Right, that's what they say, at least 94% immune. All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Brother Shankara. Thank you.